Yeah, so I welcome everyone. And the prayer that we have today with us, which has been shared with all of us, is June 15, 1913. And uh, we also will go through the talk by Dr. Alok Pandey, the transcript of the talk. And before I begin to go through the transcript, I would like to request each one of you for your reflections. If you could share your reflections of going through the talk or the prayer itself, and anything that you would like to share. Yeah, please. Who would like to share first?
Yeah, I can go.
Yes, please. Yeah.
So, yeah, basically the things. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So the things that I resonated with, I'll start with those. So there, Alokda had given an example that we go to see cinema and we see these, things like courage and heroism and all, and we are so moved by it. Like people are crying, they are angry and stuff, but nothing changes. So I found it quite beautiful because it was quite true that a lot of times we do experience things, but we are not able to incorporate those things in our lives. So how he said that, if nothing changes, then there is no meaning to it. Like the whole experience or the whole, I guess the purpose of it was kind of not fulfilled if there was no change in your life. So, like I think even Acharya Prashant says that a lot, na, कि जीवन कैसा जी रहे हो वो दिखाओ इधर उधर की बातें, just talking is not there. And that reminded me that, once I went for a camp and there they said that one of the misfortunes of being in India is that there are so many satsangs and these discourses. So one starts taking them as entertainment. और इतने easily मिल जाता है कि it's like, it's the need and the want and the yearning is not there that much. So I don't know how true that is, but somehow that reminded me of this, that real change needs to happen if something needs to be changed from both inside and outside. And I guess the same thing was transferred there, that until life upon earth changes as a result of what we discover within, it doesn't really help much. And after that, I have this: if this world is a world of darkness, then all the more a reason that children of light, children of immortality, should plunge into it and build it there. That is why we are here. Again, this was quite nice because a lot of times we just end up complaining. Maybe, we have different stages as well, like, कि कितना मुश्किल है, या how tough it is and stuff. And that should not be a deterrent. That should actually be a motivation that it's bad. And that is why it's more important that we delve into it more strongly. And then, yeah, again, the same. After that, there was this example of a dungeon that if it's we are there to clean, but because it's so dark and dirty, we just forget that why we came to the dungeon in the first place. And yeah, and then the body part, that why should we divinize the body? Again, especially, I don't know, maybe it's not reflected well, but a lot of times the body is considered to be, it should be ignored. But with Mother and, Sri Aurobindo, they always give it equal importance, and that actually they say it has to kind of join in. It has to be together for things to actually change, because that is the element that kind of pulls us back. There was, Monica, this example of Mahakaleshwar temple, that it was dirty. I somehow
Yes.
couldn't understand it much. If you did, I don't know if it was the same thing.
Uh-huh.
Because if someone says, how does it matter? Because thoda sa confusing laga. If it's something else,
ठीक है.
do talk about it if when you get there, if you there was
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And yeah, and again, uska same hi tha कि we don't treat the body as something which is full of all kind of horrible things. and therefore discard it. On the contrary, this is what the first point as well was. This is greatness to create in the body a beautiful thing. And because the divine is omnipotent, it must be possible, or we have to accept the divine is not omnipotent. Because in lot of other teachings, sometimes they say that, rise above the body and forget, I guess, not the same words, but
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like the
yeah.
same. And the Gita, in the context of the battle, where it said that, the work is to create a divine supermanhood out of this humanity. So I like the way it was termed. And this example again, in which it said that, how the man would be just like a little worm that has managed to form itself in a little bit of mud and water amidst the appalling immensities of the universe. So, if you look at the earth from a larger perspective, it is mud and water, human size like a worm, but there is something about human beings we can ascend towards a divine life and not a divine consciousness only. This is our real work. Yeah, I guess that's it from me. So, these are the things that I found really beautiful. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, anybody else would like to share?
Yeah, Monica, actually, this prayer is actually totally resonating with me. When I first started trying to sit for meditation for a long time, it was a utter failure for me. Actually, only for 20 minutes I'm able to concentrate. So that was a thing for a long time. It was there in my mind, but after started reading sincerely Mothers and Sri Aurobindo's works, I found okay, the way of, I mean, living is very important more than meditation. That gave me a lot of joy, and also as Taru said, no, that body is a place for the divine, temple of the divine. So this I mean, this is very much resonating with me because I started my yoga practices only at the age of 42. After I came to, I mean, know about mother's teachings and all. Now, from that time onwards, still I'm doing for 45 minutes with mother's symbol, no, 12 petals. So I used to concentrate in those 12 qualities, and for each petal, one round. So my Surya Namaskar will be for six rounds. It will come. Actually, till today it gives me a lot of energy and opening towards mother more than the meditation. So yeah, that word, that transformation also attracted me a lot in the beginning, actually.
Yeah,
So, yeah, so these things I want to share. Yeah, thank you.
yeah. Thank you, Chitra.
Mm.
Monica, the main thing which struck me in the whole thing was was the opening sentences where people associate spirituality in the present generation or in the present times with just meditation, which is not true, and where we sort of dissociate from the body and we abstract ourselves away in reality when we think that we are doing meditation, which is not the way to do it. One should be in passive meditation all the time. Automatically it should come, and that struck because if we go towards in that direction, I guess then we are on the path straight. That's what mainly struck me in this.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. We have this seeking, right? So, as if there is this incompletion that we want to fulfill in our life. And first, we try to fulfill it from the material perspective, the worldly relations, the marriage, kids, ambitions, office, work, desire, and all that. And when we fail there, we we see that, oh my God, I'm not getting fulfillment there. In the beginning, we turn to spirituality, kind of being hopeless from the world, that I'm not getting fulfilled from the world. And the mind, it seems that the mind has changed, but the mind is still the seeking mind. It is still the incomplete uh, sense of incompletion, that the mind is turning towards spirituality. And one can very easily get stuck into these internal experiences that one gets through, the visualizations or meditations and all that, right? And that can become a big trap, because then we begin to only crave for those experiences and then negate all the rest of it. That rest of it is not important. What is beautiful is this. So all the kachara is still lying there in my house, but I am just focusing on those beautiful visualizations or experiences. And it seems that something has changed, some beauty has come, but it actually is the same trap. The begging bowl is still in my hand, and now I want to fulfill the begging bowl by those internal experiences of meditation. So nothing actually changes outwardly. My character still remain very fussy, very irritable. All the anger, frustrations, all of these come out in my words, in my day-to-day life. And yeah, the only solace one finds is through these experiences. And yes, these experiences are not uh, like absolutely illusory experiences. They just give us a taste of that ever present peace, right? But that, as Alugda has shared here, that peace has to be transformed more and more. It has to be brought into the outer life. And if the peace is solid and real, if it is true, if I have truly touched peace, it is not a possibility that in due course of time it does not reflect in my outer life. It is not a possibility. And if it has not started to reflect in my outer life, then it definitely means that I am still living in illusions. One dream was the dream of my outer life, and now this is another dream that is going on, which is my inner story and inner life and visualizations. So it is almost a certitude that in time, if the inner change is real, it has actually taken place. If I can use the word actually taken place, nothing takes place, but still, if the realization is true, then it is not a possibility that it does not appear in the outer, through my speech, through my actions, through my day-to-day exchanges with people in my life, in my worldly behavior. It's an impossible thing that it does not reflect. And the more dirt we see in our own life, the more ugliness we see in our more life, the more big and beautiful the challenge, that yes, it has to be transformed, because ugliness cannot be the way. Suffering cannot be the way, because no one likes to suffer. So we are not here for suffering. It has to be transformed. And I think got reminded of this, I think one of the quotes from Rumi, that he says that in the world full of darkness, be the candle, which spreads light. And it is the task of each one of us. It is our birthright plus our urgent responsibility. First, we light up our own temple, if I can say light up, kind of unmask the light from the sheets of ignorance. And then it is not a possibility that the light does not touch other lives. So this is our task. When people share, what do I do? Who am I? What is the truth of my being? What do I do in this life? What is the purpose of my being in this life at all? The purpose of our being is to actually just unmask this hidden inner light, shine brightly, and that is our true essence, that is our true being. And then everything is done, the lives are touched, we are helping people without even knowing that we are helping people, because it's only the being that shines through. Just like a flower is there, just being the flower is enough to spread the fragrance. The flower is not doing anything per se to spread the fragrance. So as mother also shares that the life has to be like blossoming of a flower, and more we see this for our own being. So yeah, as some of you touched that, let's begin the transcript then. that the proof of spiritual progress is not how many hours I am spending in meditation, but how many hours am I spending in the spiritual Kurukshetra. What is the clarity that I have in my hand when I am in the Kurukshetra, in the middle of all the battles of life? What is my state of being then? That is what tells me that I have been spending the rest of the time wisely or unwisely. Because if in the middle of the Kurukshetra, I feel baffled up, entangled, knowing not where should I go, then it definitely means that the rest of the hours of the day that I have spent, they have been actually not at the right place. And the baddest place that I can go to is the closest, our baddest enemy, if one can say, is the closest, the mind. The stories of the head. Not saying that the mind per se is bad, but we have been abusing it. So if the whole of the day I have been absorbed in me and my stories, drenched wet in that dirt and filth, when the battle happens in life, when I am in the middle of the situations where I have to deal wisely, I will not be able to know where to go, because the Sat Sangat has not been there. It has been a Kusangat of the mind. And the more the rest of the time I am spending wisely, throughout the day, more hours I am spending where I do get clarity, peace, and feel home at in my being. Whenever a challenge arises, it will just show up that yes, I'll be able to take it as a stepping stone towards my own progress. It will not be able to throw me here and there like a puppet. And that will be the signal that the hours have been spent okay, they have been spent wisely in a Sat Sangat. Yeah. And there's as Jyotsna ji reflected, that the meditation should be continuous. All life is yoga, if Sri Aurobindo says, all life is yoga. Each movement of my being, each moment of my day, I do not need to go anywhere. I do not need to touch any ashram. This home, this being in my body, if I can use that word, being at wherever I am, it's a mobile ashram. It's a mobile meditation. To be attentive to my state of being. Am I still in my stories, or am I being in the situation, meeting the situation directly, fiercely, with pure perception and knowing? Or am I just lost in the stories, the thread of the stories? Because there is no end to it. There's no end to the stories. And all the stories appear so real that it's hard in the beginning to leave them, to drop them and say that yes, I love my peace and clarity so much that no matter the story is appearing so big and real, I will not even think a second thought to abandon that story, because now I value my own peace and clarity. This is the sankalp that each one of us has to do almost each moment of our life. Keep sharing, whenever you have anything. Yes, and this is the trap that we can get stuck into, that we again, that the begging bowl that was outwardly through person, situations, relationships, that begging bowl has turned inwardly, and now I am just begging for those visions, voices, and the colors in meditation and all that, beautiful experiences. And experiences are experiences. They are fleeting. I'll again feel disappointed. The more I cling on to any experience of any sort, it may be spiritual experience, it may be material experience, I am sure to be disappointed. Why? Because experiences are experiences. They come and go, they come and go. They are fleeting. The whole life is fleeting. So I cannot make a solid anchor in those experiences. Otherwise, I'm in here for a very strong disappointment. Just a second. Yeah. And what is that unchanging element through all the experiences of our life? What is that unchanging element? That unchanging element is the one by whose presence the experience is known. That never changes. That knowing forever is. So we are here for more and more disappointment if we anchor ourselves in any kind of experience, right? Yeah, and as Taru shared that when the movie is over, we are very inspired and thrilled, and what a courage, what a bravery being shown in the movie, and it's good to be touched by those views or the visuals or the ideals. But then my life remains the same. Nothing changes. And that's why Kabir says, Pothi pad pad jag mua, pandit bhaya na koe, dhai akhar prem ke, pade so pandit hoye. What is this dhai akhar prem that Kabir wants to hint at? That everything, I know. And Kabir, at many other bhajans, Kabir says, you are a wandering uh, scholar, sire gyani, bhatakta hua wise person. We are all wandering. We are all lurking here and there because there is so much of restlessness in the being. Even after having read so much in our life. So that is what Kabir calls as thotha gyan. It did not lead you anywhere. The life remains unchanged. Look at the way that you live life. You think that you know, but is your knowing reflected in your living? Not at all. Why? In the beginning, when we begin on this path, it is all coming from the domain of the mind. We are understanding things from the domain of mental perception, and it is always forever going to be limited. And that is why practical suffering becomes as a blessing, because when I am suffering in my life and all that knowledge is not helping me, only then a real action is taken or a non-action is taken. Okay, now there is so much suffering in life, all my gyan is not helping me, what to do? And then if grace is there, and the grace is forever there, if one is open to receive grace, we are shown or we are given a taste of the intimacy of our being, our truth of the being. That is what is love. ढाई आखर प्रेम के पढ़े सो पंडित होए. The one who becomes or who gets even a taste or a glimpse of his truth and holds on to that truth, gives it most utter importance in life, that one is what I call the real scholar. Because for that one, knowing will become living in time. It is not a possibility that if I have tasted the truth of my being, the love of my being, it is not a possibility that in time it does not get reflected in my life. And then all the knowledge of the books almost begins to become alive for me. They are not mere words that Sri Aurobindo, Mother, Kabir, or any other person speaks. They have become life for me. That is another phase of our life. So it may begin with mental understanding or mental clarity, and slowly, with experiences, with felt experiences of practical life. And that's why challenges come as a blessing. Without challenges, we are not humble. We say, yes, I've done so many workshops and I know everything. Tell me your problem and I will be resolving it. But I myself have no solution for my own issue. And that really humbles me. That this is a little tricky affair. Yeah. Yes. So this prayer, keep sharing as and when. Otherwise, I'll just keep on going. June 15, 1913. Even he who might have arrived at perfect contemplation in silence and solitude could only have done so by extracting himself from his body, by making an abstraction of himself. Now, as Alokda has already pointed out, Mother is saying, even he and that even he is already very rare. Even when we ourselves sit in meditation, contemplation, or not even sit, throughout the day, the moment we taste stillness, in no time the thoughts come again. So it must actually take a long time for me to arrive at the perfect contemplation in silence, staying in my inner silence, in the stillness of the being, and actually acting in the world through that inner stillness. So even that person who has arrived, might have arrived at perfect contemplation in silence and solitude, could only have done so by extracting himself from his body. So he would have dissociated himself, as we talk about, the traditional yoga, dissociating oneself from the clamor and chaos of the body. Could have only done so by extracting himself from this body, by making an abstraction of himself. Now, why that step becomes important? Because, Kalugda shares here, who can understand the divine? He has been called as the unknowable, the one who cannot be thought of. So it's a tricky affair. You say that contemplate on the divine, and then you say that he cannot be thought of. Now what to do? And here, in the midst of this, the mind dissolves back in the source. It goes absolutely missing, as if goes still. Who can understand the divine? Because understanding the divine is not the function of the mind. It is not ever going to come through the mind. And that is why we say that we cannot ever know or understand the divine. We cannot have a tete-a-tete with the divine, because the very fact that I am saying I am having a tete-a-tete with the divine means that there are two. And it itself is a kind of a blasphemy, as if there is one in me and who is meeting the divine. So that is already defeating the purpose, because it's only divine that is completely, absolutely there. So how can there be two? That yes, I am meeting the divine, it definitely means that I have reduced the divine into something limited. And is the divine limited? No. And here the mind gets boggled up. So it is not the way of the mind. And that is why saints, masters, mystics have asked and requested again and again for each one of us to go beyond the thought domain, which is a possibility. Because as long as the thought remains, limited perception will remain. Thought is that limited window from which I see everything. And everything I see is then limited if it's coming from that domain. I would never have the whole picture. I will always have the limited understanding. So, who can understand the divine? It is something beyond human conception. We have all our parameters, yardsticks. Even when we contemplate on the divine, we actually just know images of it. Even when we talk of love, today I was talking to somebody, I was having a session with, and I was talking to her that what if the emptiness that you feel in the being, the void that you feel in the being, the darkness that you feel in the being is love? And it almost baffles the mind. How can it be love? How can it be love? Because we have been given images of love. Now, I'm not saying, that can again become an image of love, that if it's not dark, then it's not love. I'm not saying to again give it an image, but I am saying that when we talk about love, that I don't feel love in the being, I don't feel that oneness in the being, we actually are only comparing it to the images of love and oneness in my mind, if we really go close. Because what I see in Hollywood and Bollywood, that is not there. So it means love is not there. How do I know what is love? Maybe just being is love. maybe just being in my, being in my stillness, in the darkness of the being, maybe that void itself was forever love, and I was missing it, or I was asking the whole world to fill that void up, and it never got filled up, just because I had an image in my mind that this is how love is supposed to be. So just leaving it to the mystery, what love is, because it's better not to label it, because the moment I label it, whatever is not the label, I would say that that is not love, right? So whatever is falling in that label, that is love. Rest of it is not love. So again, we define or limit love. Yes. So Alokda shared here that so we are given abstractions of the divine so that at least we have some foothold. या मतलब कहीं से तो शुरू करें, कहीं से तो शुरू करें. चलो तुम शुरू करो images से, images से ही शुरू करो, dualities में ही शुरू करो, but at least begin on the path. So that is why he shares that at least to have an abstraction of what the divine can be, because we begin with the mind, right? As I was sharing earlier, that we begin with images, and that is not that is only suiting our own old ways. The old ways of the mind is going by images. So how we begin contemplating about the divine is by images. But then, as we have to leave all the gunas behind, tamas, rajas, sattva, all that has to be left behind. Just like that, all the images also slowly fade away, and something new takes place, or something, something comes into picture where images are not necessary, the labels are not necessary now to have a foothold. And thus the substance of which the body is constituted would remain as impure, as imperfect as before. So I contemplated in the subtle realms on the divine, and there I may have achieved perfection in my silences, but the body remained the same. The body does not reveal itself to be full of divinity. The cells still have a strong memory of their mortality. The body is still aging. The cells still are drenched in fear. So what really changed? And that is why, as some of you were sharing, that is why this path of integral yoga becomes even the more important, because being in this bodily life, being the mortal, so-called mortal beings that we are, is it possible that the divinity shines through the body? It must be possible, because if the divine is in the, in the minutest of particles, then the body is also minutest of those particles. So if the divine is truly there, then the immortality, then the light, then the shine, and the Satchit Ananda should also be able to reflect in the body, in the behavior, in through the feelings, feelings, deeper emotions of compassion, kindness, love, care for each other, true care, not the superficial, ego massaging of the care. That should all be possible. And this is how the body participate, because all these feelings and emotions are associated with the body. So if the body is not made to participate, then it is just saying that I'm escaping from the body and leaving it to itself, the mud and the dirt. Yeah. By a misguided mysticism, by the attractions of superphysical splendors, by the egoistic desire of being united with thee for his personal satisfaction, he would have turned his back upon the reason of his earthly existence. Now, this is so beautiful, because here we get a glimpse of what are we to do in this life. Why has been human birth said so precious? Today again, referring to that session that I was having today, all of our life, each life of our human life, we all have a story, haven't we? We all have gone through our own sufferings, and those sufferings are not in vain. Because if I have been born and brought up having no power at all and never took charge of really my own being, now when I'm beginning to wake up that yes, I must be there for myself, I must take charge of my being, so I will be able to empathize with those people on this earthly existence who have actually at one moment of time lost their power. There comes deep compassion that, brother, I recognize what you are going through. So if I can reclaim my power back, you can also. You can also do that. So these are our, the journeys that we go through, touching the dumps and the recesses of the being, going through deep, deep suffering, makes us even more compassionate towards people who are going through it. So that suffering was not for without any reason. That gave me a connection with the greater humanity. So if now I can reclaim my own power back, if I can reclaim my own temple back, sister or brother, you can too. And this is our, this is where we connect deeply, because this is our birthright. Each one of us deserves to be the master of our own being. So if I am just for my own selfish peace and sanity and all that, I am just absorbed completely in those kundali awakenings and all those nice experiences, I'm actually still a beggar. I'm still a beggar. I'm a begging bowl for those experiences. Nothing really has changed. I was a beggar in relationships, and now I am a beggar that please give me all those experiences that make me feel so beautiful. Nothing changed. No self giving happened. And a true life would be then, yes, touching those silences, I now turn back to the world and offer myself fully to the transformation of my own body, my own mind, feelings, and thoughts, and in by a side effect, by almost a side effect, touch the other human lives, not by a doing, but by a happening. I'm not going out in the world and asking, hey, seek help from me. I am the one. I'm not like that. It doesn't happen like that. Just our presence is enough. Just the presence of the flower, the presence of an innocent child is enough to touch something deep in the other person. And that's why mother says, be like a child, be innocent like a child, be like a flower. Yes. So this, let me just read through this Sri Aurobindo's quotation here. There are two things perfectly pleasing to God in his servant and devotee: to sweep his temple floors in silent adoration, beautiful, or to fight the great battle of future for the divine consummation in humanity. This is the task that we need to do, to sweep our own inner temple, the floors of our own being, the floor of the mind, the floor of emotions, the floor of the body, to sweep his temple floors in silent adoration, or whenever the battle is there, stand up fearlessly for the battle, because we have nothing to lose. Because what we are, the essence that we are, can never be lost. So, fight the right battle. Then it gives us, even it connects us with the divine strength when we are fighting the right battle. And the very fact that usually we are not fighting the right battles, we are just battling with other person's ego, and that's why we don't feel the divine strength there, because the divine does not come to the help of the ego. Yeah, so that is a signal that if I am feeding the battle of the ego, I will never be able to get the divine strength from within. I will forever be weak, and that is a signal that it's not the right battle. Yeah. And this, in the story of the creation, mother shares that all the souls that are presently so called in mortal existence, all souls have plunged into this adventure of bringing back the unconsciousness to full consciousness, shedding, dropping the veils of ignorance and realizing our true, authentic nature. So we are not in this story or in this life by somebody else's decision or a choice. We just forgot that we chose this. And the moment I realized that, yes, I chose this. So far I have been living and feeding my stories. And now, because I chose this, can I now turn within and live from the truth within my being? Because if it is all my choice, then I must be able to reverse this. And then we see that the petrol or the fuel was forever in my hand. I was the one feeding my stories and becoming a victim of those stories. And now I am the one abandoning almost without a second thought. Kabir says, Sar Sahib ko saupte, socha na kije sur. The warrior, the true warrior, would not think even a second thought when he has given his head to the divine. What is the divine? The divine is truth and peace and sanity of my being. For my own peace and clarity and stillness, I would not even think second a thought that I should be thinking about these stories or not. I'll just immediately abandon it. And that is the true most, the truth, true, if one can say, the truest, most aspect of loving oneself. That abandoning everything which not giving it that much of power in front of my own peace and clarity. That is a true warrior of Kabir. Yeah. If this world is a world of darkness, then all the more a reason that children of light, children of immortality, and we are the children of immortality, each one of us. There are no special children out here. Each one of us is the child of immortality. Should plunge into it and build that light here, build that temple of light here. He would have refused, coward-like, to accomplish his mission, this mission of being the light onto my own self. First of all, accomplish his mission to redeem and purify matter. And matter, when we say matter, matter is not separate from mind. Mind is matter. Mind is matter. They are very, very strongly one with each other. So when I say purify matter, it means purifying mind. And we know, we all have seen the power of even one moment when the story is not there with me. What utter clarity can I experience? Yeah. And then again, as Taru touched upon it, that if you have entered into the dungeon, you find yourself in the dungeon with that little, even a streak of light, of understanding and clarity that, yes, this looks like a dungeon. I see the filth here. Now let's clean it up. Even a little light of understanding is enough. We can begin with that. And we all have access to that clarity. Because don't we see the filth in our lives? We all see that. And what is the aspect that is able to see the ugliness in life? That aspect is the clarity. So one has to begin with that little pointing beacon of light and clean up, begin to clean up every day, each moment. And here, we are coming upon only Mother shares, to know that a part of our being is perfectly pure. That part which can see the filth. That part which is not itself the filth. That clarity, that light, that yes, there is something in my life that needs a more understanding, more satsangat. That clarity, to know that part of our being is perfectly pure and to commune with that purity, commune, to have a meeting, kind of a rubaru with that part, more basking in that presence of that clarity, to commune with that purity, to be identified with it. Now what do I mean by identified with it? To know myself as that clarity. In most of the part of our life, I am knowing myself as my story, the role in my story, the character, the victim in my story, or the hero in my story. Right? Now, Mother is sharing Who to identify with? Who are you truly? That clarity, that purity. So know more and more yourself as that light of consciousness within yourself. To know that a part of our being is perfectly pure, to commune with that purity, to be identified with it, can be useful only if we subsequently utilize this knowledge for hastening the earthly transfiguration, for accomplishing thy sublime work. What is thy sublime work? The more and more I live being identified, knowing myself as that light of clarity, all my actions more and more come out of that clarity. Now I am not the character in my story. Now I am not the victim in my story. Now I am not even the hero in my story. Who am I? That clarity. So, what do I do in this external matter? What is the decision to be taken if I am that clarity? If I am not the begging bowl in my story, what is the decision that should be taken in this situation? So, this is how we change our earthly existence. This is the sublime work, right? And these, yes, yeah. The lines from Savitri, the absolute, the perfect, the immune, the one who is immune, we may have suffered so badly in the story, yet something in us remains untouched. That immunity, that eternity, we are forever carrying in ourselves. That certitude that nothing forever was touched. Although I suffered so badly, I seem to have suffered so badly in my life. Nothing was forever touched. The absolute, the perfect, the immune one who is in us as our secret self. Why secret self? Because this was supposed to be this play of hide and seek and just for fun. But as long as I am in the story, the character of the story, life is not fun for me. It appears really cruel. And so long as the life is appearing cruel to me, I can be damn sure that I am still the character in the story. Even a point of suffering when it is present in my life, I can be damn sure that I am identifying in this moment as the character in my story and not as this secret self. Once I taste that secret self, then I can say, wow, what Leela, one can laugh about it. It can become a divine comedy instead of the Maya and illusion. Our mask of imperfection has assumed. So, this absolute, the perfect and the immune, has assumed the mask of imperfection. So, Mother is saying even imperfection is a mask, it is not for real. What is real is the truth of the being. He has made this tenement of flesh his own, his image in the human measure cast, that to his divine measure we might rise. So, this is the journey that knowing, noticing that yes, this appears like filth, not abandoning the filth, transfiguring, transforming the filth, making it more a beautiful temple of the inner divine presence. That is the task. This is, here Alugda shares, it is the light, it is the beacon, it is the guide. And carrying this lamp, we have to change things. Otherwise, we won't even know where to begin. And then it is not a possibility that earthly matter and nature is not changed, being in this, in the middle of Kurukshetra all the time. So this temple thing that Taru was asking to share, what I understood through this context was that Alokda went to this Mahakaleshwar temple and he saw that, wow, you say that one of the most important kind of visions of the divine or the divine form is a presence, the divine presence is here in this temple, and it is so filthy, it is so kind of unclean. So on one hand, you say that it is divine presence that is inhabiting this temple, and on the other hand, you are so much in numbness that you don't even take any effort to clean this temple at all. And this aspect we see very clearly in gurudwaras, and when we compare it to our Indian temples, and when we usually North Indian temples or even other temples, that there is so much kind of effort and service that the people at Gurudwara put in the cleanliness. And it almost, nobody can refuse that it is there in action, it is there in behavior. That self giving is out there in the matter, which is absent in many many temples. So we, on the one hand, we say that it is divine residing here, and on the other hand, we don't even care about the material aspect. We don't even clean the premises. And it is a reflection that if we say that the body is a temple of the divine, shouldn't it be our responsibility to keep it pure and purify it further and further of all the impurities that we are able to see, to keep it clean, nurtured and nourished? So that is what I could understand here. Yeah. Yes. And again, I found this really beautiful, that why to consider the body as full of filth and dirt and lower impulses. Yes, I see the lower impulses, but now when I am waking up to this light of being that I am, those lower impulses can be transformed into deeper compassion, deeper feelings. So why to reject the body? Why to reject, even I, personally connected very strongly with how when a child is there, when a newborn is born, he's born naked. Tribals and people who are living in indigenous tribes, they don't have any issue with nakedness. They are absolutely fine with their nakedness. And in time we condition the child, shame, that you must be shame worthy, that if you are exposing your these parts or that parts. So we actually condition, the child is not aware that I have to be shameful of this part or that part, but we condition the child that you have to be ashamed that this part is there in the body at all. And the whole universe actually is actually propelled by those forces which we hide, the lower forces. So one has to be absolutely comfortable with the body that we have been gifted. It's a gift from the divine. I'm not sharing that, move naked on the streets. No, maybe where people allow the nakedness, maybe there it can be done. But to be absolutely fine with the gift of the being, even the matter is a gift. There should be almost no sign of disgust that I feel towards my body. And this can be done, this can be done, and this would be called honoring my own self, because body is a gift to myself. It is through the body that the divine works. So why not keep it nice, purified and clean? Yeah. Yes, and again that certitude that if the divine is present in each and every particle of existence, why not is it possible to transform the earthly mortal existence? Yeah. Yes, and this again, Taru touched upon this, and Sri Aurobindo's work touches a lot aspects of supermanhood. When he says that the supermind is here, right now, present in this humanity, and slowly and slowly and slowly, it will manifest itself out through the beings that are present in this universe. It is not a possibility that it is not going to happen. There is a certitude. Yeah. And this should actually fill us up with energy. It's a honor, it's almost a new life, and it's a blessing to wake up to every day and to serve the divine. And when I say so, to serve the divine, it means to serve truth, peace, clarity, beauty. And as we say, charity begins at home, we actually begin at home. That the more I begin to serve my own truth, the more I begin to take charge of my own peace, actually I am doing a social service only. I am one drop of poison less in this vast universe. That is where I begin. Yeah. And it's a blessing to be of this service Otherwise, most of the time, most of the life, we are serving the ego. When I say the ego, it is me and my story. Who will fulfill me? Who will fulfill me? Nobody comes to fulfill me. I've been cheated, and all those stories. There's no end to it. There is no end to it. So one day one wakes up and realizes enough of plunging in the stories. I must do something with this life. And then each day becomes a blessing. Yes. So that is the blah blah from me. And if you have anything to share or reflect upon, please do share your comments. Else we go ahead and read the prayer. This is so beautiful. I'm just looked at it. But if you enter into the world, your hands will get muddy. you know it's not possible that dirt and filth, so-called dirt and filth, does not touch you. But also what will accompany you are the purifying waters of the Ganges, that clarity, that light, that presence of ease and understanding within your being, which only you would know. Only you would know. And you would not be able to need to convince anyone that that yes, it's there. I feel the presence. There's no need for that conviction towards anybody else. You know it. That's enough. So we must use our own suffering, all the stories that we have been through in our life, for this transformation. Our sufferings were not in vain. Only after touching a deep aspect of suffering can I empathize with the other one who is suffering. And that is the oneness that we crave for. And if not for that suffering, I would have actually ever, forever be a separated being in this worldly existence. That me and my life, I am fine. You may be suffering, but I am fine. Now, when I have touched those waters of suffering, I know that, babe, yes, I know what you're going through. And yes, you have a story. I had a story. If I can touch the love within the being, you can too. And that is how we touch each other's lives. So those sufferings are not in vain. They have a purpose to be there. They humble us, they ground us. We are up in the air knowing that we have read so much, all the workshops and degrees and psychology, psychotherapy we may have. But when it comes to the ground reality, the matters in my life, I suck at it. And it puts me back on the ground. So this, and it's very important to be on the ground. Grounding is the one which makes a plane fly. One needs a runway before the plane can fly. Even when a rocket is launched, it is launched from the ground, and it has to come back to the ground. So yeah, I think enough said. So if not anything, let us go through the prayer, and I would request one of you, and if I may choose who that one may be, maybe that person already knows who that person is going to be. Yeah. Shreya, would you like to read?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you see in the prayer?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Even he who might have arrived at perfect contemplation in silence and solitude could only have done so by extracting himself from his body, by making an abstraction of himself, and thus the substance of which the body is constituted would remain as impure, as imperfect as before. See, since he would have abandoned it to himself, by a misguided mysticism, by the attraction of supraphysical splendours, by the egoistic desire of being united with thee for his personal satisfaction. He would have turned his back upon the reason of his earthly existence. He would have refused, cowardlike, to accomplish his mission to redeem and purify matter. To know that a part of our being is perfectly pure, to commune with that purity, to be identified with it, can be useful only if we subsequently utilize this knowledge for hastening the earthly transfiguration, for accomplishing thy sublime work.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yep. So thank you everyone for joining. If there is anything, please do share. And if not, thank you for joining in.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you, Jyotsna ji. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you. Bye bye.